Hello and welcome back to Pablo's Vault of Horror. Now that was L7 with Pretend We're Dead. Prior to that we had Evil Blizzard with Spread the Fear. And of course me and Rosemary's Baby's theme, which is a perennial favourite here on the Vault of Horror. Now, as you may be aware if you've been checking the old Twitters, as I do like to use for advertising this particular show, Pablo's Vault of Horror, with me, Pablo, and the Vault of Horror. We've got some guests in today. Right, so I'll say first off, I'll say hello to Wayne Madden of this here parish of the Spanish House Table. Hello, Wayne.
Good evening. Absolute pleasure. How are you?
Very well, thank you. I'm just playing about with these levels. It's all very echoey around here.
I think some of that echo might be coming from your speaker. If you want to turn the volume down on that, you might find, because I have this little tip, this actual physical speaker. If you want to turn that down, and then that should hopefully stop the echo.
Turn it off completely. See if that helps. That's still a bit peculiar, but we'll just see how we'll go. We'll crack on regardless.
That's no worries, man. That's no worries.
Yes, so Wayne, thank you very much for coming in.
Oh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. It's like being invited into your own living room and then asked to sit in the seat that you never sit in, and you're looking at the room from the opposite direction. It's quite nice, actually. It's lovely over here.
Really nice to give you a brand new perspective on things.
It does, yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Oh, you can't beat a good bong. Right, so we're back at Pablo's Vault of Horror with the two Waynes and Dawn. And of course, it was Mike. Is it Michael? Sorry, I'm completely...
Henry.
Henry, sorry, Henry. I don't know where I got Mike off from. We also have Henry here, who is recording things for his own purposes. He hasn't explained it. Nobody actually knows who he is. He just came in and set up a camera, so I'm a little bit worried. But we'll crack on. Right, well... As you can tell, the fader goes up, the echo comes in, so I'm going to be talking to our guests again. This time I'm going to focus my attention squarely on Wayne Madden of, as I say, of this parish, Nova Radio, with the Spanish Announce Table every Wednesday, 8 till 10, and sometimes even later, sometimes, or earlier. But yes, hello Wayne, how are you?
I'm not too bad, how are you?
I'm very well, very well.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, no, sometimes earlier, sometimes later, depending on what they let us stay. And of course, just after us on a Wednesday night, we have Tim Strange. And Tim actually used to be a professional wrestler himself. And I didn't realize this until we started doing the show. We were about 2 weeks into doing the show. And one of my co-hosts turned to me and went, "Do you realize who that is?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's Tim. He does the show after us." "No, it's Tim Strange. He's a..." And got very excited, and I looked up, and sure enough, Tim Strange, a professional wrestler. And we have another guy apparently on the schedule, and he used to wrestle professionally. It's in the blood in the Northeast, I think. I mean, I believe you're a massive wrestling fan as well, and you attended some of the early North wrestling shows, a little birdie has told me.
Oh, I did, yes. I've always been a fan of wrestling. I even attended wrestling training once upon a time when I was a much younger man for WZW.
Oh.
Trained by the Iceman, and I think it was General Trent Steele with the trainers there.
Wow.
Very good. I cut a promo. I got backdropped. Axe handled a giant of a man, and got plaudits for my drop kick. But then my girlfriend at the time wouldn't let me go back, so I didn't pursue that.
It's interesting though, you know, because I attended the North Wrestling at the Riverside last Saturday night, and I have to say that, you know, when you go to a WWE or an NXT show, or even WCW or ECW, or what, when you see something on television or you attend a big arena show, you're never going to get anywhere near the front unless you pay like massive money. So to go to a show like North and literally have the opportunity to walk right up to the ring gives you an opportunity to see these guys and the abuse that they take in the ring. And even after every match, the sweat pouring off these guys, the marks and the lines on their bodies, the fact that they'd actually taken these physical falls from the top of the ring and the rope and all that, it kind of put into perspective that they were sort of throwing them around and really, really hurting themselves for the purposes of entertainment, which is both kind of cool, but also kind of disturbing at the same time, in one sense, and kind of fits into the theme of your show, where wrestling in many respects is quite horrific. The punishment one puts themselves through in the performance of their art.
Oh, no, certainly. I mean, I saw, and obviously I don't know if fans of the show will be familiar with the wrestler Walter, big German chap, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Yeah.
And he's recently joined up with WWE, the NXT UK chapter of their ever-expanding empire. And there was a match on his first introduction where he's well known for a chest slap, a kind of a chop, much if you're familiar with Ric Flair, often followed by a woo. But Walter, when he does it so hard, they actually took a photo of the chap's chest that he did it to afterwards, and after about half an hour, not only was there a perfect palm imprint on his chest, you could actually see the wrinkles and contours of his palm print on that bruise, just to show the kind of power that he was given there. So, whether, obviously predetermined, it's all set and what have you, but people do get hurt, and it does take a lot out of you. So a lot of respect for the.
Well, yeah, they do, definitely. I mean, we talked about a particular incident that happened a few weeks ago. We talked about this in great length on the show. The actor David Arquette, he obviously, I mean, one of the things he became most famous for was, of course, being married to Courtney Cox for a while, but
and the Scream franchise. We've got
yes, but
keep it on trend.
No, okay, fair enough. I'll keep it on. I was kind of ribbing on David Arquette rather than but whatever. That's fine though. I appreciate that he did of course do the Scream franchise. But the reason I mention him is that he did a film a couple of years ago that very few people tend to have seen, but I personally love, called Ready to Rumble, which is a film all about World Championship Wrestling as it was at the time, and the idea of this underdog who ends up becoming the heavyweight champion against the odds and comes back and has a miraculous career. And it features all these cameos and all that from wrestlers like Sting and Randy Savage and all this nonsense. But the funny thing is that as part of the promotion for that film, David Arquette ended up winning the WCW World Heavyweight title on WCW TV, held the belt for something like 18 days. And at the time, it was all this big work, and people really he received a lot of seriously major abuse for doing that. And so for the past 18 years or so, he has effectively now been fighting in these grudge street fight matches in and around the Los Angeles area in a way to legitimately try and get back in favor with wrestling fans, because he says that, me winning that title was a disgrace, but actually I really, 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 care about this profession, this sport, this entertainment. And of course, as you'll know, a few weeks ago, he was nearly killed in a street fight when somebody ripped a vein that was very close, very in his neck. And he could have very, very seriously died. Well, I mean, he could have died, but he was very lucky that he was able to even walk out of the ring, all things considered. So, yeah, definitely.
Well, that goes to, was it Freight Train of ECW fame?
That's the one, yeah.
Well-known story of ECW in the late 90s. Were known for Eastern Championship Wrestling originally, but then became Extreme Championship Wrestling, and they really lent heavily on the Extreme.
They did.
And there's a wrestler, New Jack, very well known for taking basically a shopping trolley full of blades and cheese graters and stop signs and all sorts to the ring, and there were a wrestler short, and some guy basically jumped out of the crowd and said, I'm a wrestler, I'm trained, I can do it. So without checking too much, they basically said, all right, we'll get you in with New Jack. New Jack quickly realised that this guy was as green as grass. That's wrestling parlance for not very experienced, quite new.
Yes.
And New Jack basically beats the holy heck out of him to the point where he cut a vein, an artery in his chest, and well, basically he ended up quite hospitalised, I believe, in a wheelchair, or possibly had a stroke. He did die a few years later of completely unrelated circumstances, but and that kind of shows quite how real it can be. And obviously, the more you look into New Jack, the more you realise that's not somebody you want to cross with, whether you're doing it in a professional or an unprofessional capacity. He doesn't seem like a very nice man. But yes, but it can be quite heady. And as you say, North Wrestling, I did go to their very first show, which was quite the experience. I can't quite repeat the chants that they used on air, but it was very blue. It's definitely an adult experience, which in my experience of local wrestling over the last few years, it'd been very much family friendly orientated.
Yes.
Which, as good as it is, sometimes for your experienced fan, you would often find the crowd would kind of turn against the promotion to a degree, because you'd have a few kids there enjoying themselves, but then you'd have a bunch of people in their late 20s, early 30s who had seen it all before and were quite happy to kind of railroad the show to a degree.
Yes.
And it's good to see something like North, and was it Tide and
so there's Tidal out of Leeds, and they're doing a show at Digital in Newcastle this Friday, and then they're also doing we've got Main Event Wrestling, and they're in Newcastle this Saturday, and then you've got Northumbria Pro Wrestling Society. And then you've also got Full Tilt Wrestling over in Walkergate, and that's just five. Of course, you've also got Defined, which comes on the back of of What Culture Pro Wrestling. That's what morphed into now is Defined. So, and then you've got NXT UK. So that's kind of 6 promotions. Let's say 5 of those are primarily based in the Northeast. And that's just the ones who were touring on like 1-2 shows a month. So it's a real hotbed, I think, in the Northeast at the moment for wrestling, or at least it seems to be, because every week we kind of wonder, will we have enough content to fill 2 hours? And every week we get enough content to fill 6 hours, and then we have to edit everything down.
Well, I've noticed as well, I think, it used to be that ICW was kind of the darling of the British indie world, and everybody wanted to get on ICW. And I think quite a lot of the move to the Northeast has been, in a kind of indirect way for a lot of wrestlers to go, notice me ICW, because it's one of the closest areas for promotion to ICW, and a lot of if you have a look at some of the wrestlers that have came up here and kind of made their name up here, you've seen a lot of them turning up in ICW, like your Anti-Fun Police, I think, actually, I'm not going to go listing names because I'm going to make some mistakes, because I'm not 100% on top of the current wrestling scene on the independent front. But yes, but it's great to see. And as I was saying to Rory Coyle, North Wrestling Champion, retaining on the his show on the 2nd of February there, where he beat the Primate.
He certainly did, fantastic match.
But yeah, so he was saying that obviously they've got a wrestling training school that I forget his name now. You'll have to help me, Wayne.
It's alright.
Fella from Sheffield or Leeds, Rampage Brown. That's
it. Right.
Yes, okay. Rampage Brown and I believe Screwface Ahmed. They've got a school in Chesterley Street, I believe. And
they do, yes.
Yeah, I think if anybody's interested or is not a decrepit old man like my good self and wants to get into that, then I think if you're going to do it now, some of the big names that have been signed to NXT UK recently, there's a few of those that have been less than a year in the business.
Totally, yes.
So it really is quite a quick turnaround. You look at some of, especially some of the younger female talents. They've really put a rocket on them, if you'll pardon the image. But yeah, there's quite a lot of people who have come on great leaps and bounds.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So there's a lot. I mean, there's a lady coming in tomorrow night, Gabrielle, and she wrestles she made her debut for North Wrestling this past Saturday, and she's wrestled with a couple of others in the very recent past. but she has basically been involved probably in the industry only about a year or two. And she's about 19, 20 herself, I believe. And in terms of the inroads that she's been making, it's phenomenal in terms of to chart her career progress, let's say this time 10 years ago, to what you could expect the average fan of wrestling to be able to achieve. Now, it doesn't mean that she can skip any training or not follow the rigorous routines or whatnot. And obviously she puts the work in, and she doesn't, as she's told us herself the last time she was in, she doesn't really have much of a life. You know, it's basically gym, school, work, training, etc. But as a result of doing that, her life becomes the reward that she gets to go out and do shows every weekend in front of sold out audiences in venues across the country, and slowly but surely makes a name for herself. And of course, North Wrestling on Saturday proved that.
Yeah, and you can build, and I think that's one of the things that you've seen, and it's nothing new, is that, you know, they've parachuted quite a lot of like former NFL players,
Yes.
basketball players, things like that throughout the years into the WWE and
Yes.
and WCW and other you know, worldwide promotions, and you see the ones that aren't necessarily taking it seriously, the ones who aren't putting in the effort, they disappear pretty quickly. And it's the ones that stick around, and you know, some of the biggest names in the sport, you know, it is their second job. They've not gone in there from the outset. They've come from a professional career in sport, injured themselves, and then gone into wrestling. You know, you just got to look at the Rock, Goldberg. Was it Ernest the Cat? I want to say Miller or Johnson, but I'm not 100%. But yeah, but quite a lot of them have been like big American football stars and the like. So it's good to hear that people can, you know, if they're putting in the work and they're able to commit themselves, that it's starting to finally pay dividends, and it's not just going to be the you know, the holiday parks and the odd caravan site here and there.
Oh, totally. I suppose I better say as well, just on that project, because I know a couple of people are listening and they will kill me if I don't. So a couple of months ago, when we got together with Nova, I have been working with Nova for years doing different bits and pieces, but Nova had effectively came to me and said, we'd like you to do a project every week. And I said, yeah, that would be great. And we tried to come up with some ideas. And it was at that point that I started a kind of a test run pilot with a gentleman named Mark Fox, who I believe you may know as the Grapple Arcade. And we did a kind of a test run show for a wrestling show. And we got in another guy named Turn Chuckle, who's also known as Pablo Mellons, the musician. And he basically, the three of us did a show together. And we thought this could be something quite interesting. But the beautiful thing about it has been that in the last couple of months, we've managed to get a number of people, including Chris Welsh, who I've worked with for years but have never managed to do a project with, and Neil McGeever and whatnot, who I've known for about 8 or 9 years, and we managed to get him to work on the show as well. And ironically, and I know you're going to think I'm making this up, your listeners might do, but it was actually Neil, funny enough, who introduced me to Wayne Thompson about 8-9 years ago. So the world is such a small place that it was actually Neil who introduced me to Wayne. And, you know, you end up meeting people in all these different projects, which is kind of crazy how that happens.
Well, it's nice to have like kind of a little incestuous bed of nepotism
going
on there. You know,
that's
nice
one way to put it.
Which is the exact thing that Wayne Thompson was arguing against in his piece before we went to those songs.
Yes.
That's okay.
But you know,
you were arguing against nepotism, I'm saying. Yes.
What's that?
You were. Yes.
So I'm going to say a goodbye to Wayne Madden from the Spanish Announce Table.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.